everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the Sharper Edge podcast with Betty Parker. I am excited to be here yet again to bring you a topic that I think might be useful to you in your personal life, in your work life. And I'm joined by a wonderful guest, a woman who has great experience and a wealth of knowledge in the area we're going to be talking about today, which is trust. And she is Miss Tina Gilbert, all the way from Fayetteville, Arkansas. She is the owner and the CEO of Next Level Training Solutions Group. And I am excited that you are in the room with me today. Miss Tina, how you doing?
I'm great. I am so excited to be here. This is going to be a great episode.
I think so too, because we can talk about a lot of stuff, you know.
We
You know
got a
what,
lot
Tina,
on
though,
trust.
I was thinking about this morning. We've done work together. I mean, you being out in Arkansas, me out here in South Carolina, but we have never met face to face.
You know what? I don't think so. I have not thought about that. But we have, that's why I love this virtual environment because you get to work with
Yeah,
people from all across the country. And I guess I would love to meet you in person
I know,
eventually,
right?
but it has not limited anything at all. So, Betty, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I have, what? And now you're going to start a whole nother conversation. Like, how do we even connect?
How did we even, I know, I don't remember that part either. I was
Okay.
like,
Well,
how did we meet?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna think about it. I have to look back around on that.
I kind of think I may have reached out to you because we both do disc.
We both do this.
So this whole self-awareness world that we live in and we try to bring to everybody else's attention, how do you function in certain spaces? How do you show up in certain spaces? How do you interact with people? All those things. So we both share that in common. And I don't know if I ever reached out to you to do some work with that, or it was you who reached out to me about something. I don't know, but I think that shared uh, kind of product we use is probably what brought us together. But and now
Yeah.
we've just kind of called on each other to do work afterwards. So
Yes. I'm gonna say you're responsible for me getting the DIS certification. So I think that may be it because I reached out to you for sure about the DISC assessment. And I've been using it ever since for the last, I would say, oh my, probably like the last 5 years or so. And it's been
yeah.
very good. Yes.
It's
So
been wonderful. So this podcast started out that way. I identified or helped the viewers to identify different styles, and hopefully they could identify their own. And then I brought people who match those styles to come in and talk to us a little bit about, how they operate at work, pretty much what we do in our training classes. And it was very
right.
good. I think we kind of distinguished those things for people, but we know that's not the end all be all when it comes to examining ourselves and knowing how we are and who we are in a lot of these spaces we occupy. So, as we deal and challenge ourselves and how we build relationships, one of the biggest things we have to always establish, as you are going to talk to us about today, is building trust. And we know that is essential in building long lasting, meaningful relationships. And so, when it comes to whether we're at work or whether we're at home in our own personal relationships, we've got to understand that that's something that's built over time. It doesn't just happen, and so we got to be patient with one another in order to build this trust. I got a question. My first question out of the box, Tina, though, is this: so, are you of the mindset that I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you, or are you of the school trust is earned? So I'm not going to trust you until I get the opportunity to build it up with you. Which side of the corner are you on?
You know what? That's such an amazing question. And I think most of us have a tendency not to trust. So we almost start out with, hey, you know what? You're going to have to build this trust and we'll see. But I think I always try to, personally, I try to go with good intent. I'm going to trust you until I really don't. But when I start thinking about this topic, and we can go in so many different directions because trust is the foundation for everything. When you think about trust and relationship, that's the foundation. It's almost kind of, I had a little note here. It says trust is just like oxygen we have to have for survival. Trust we have to have for a good relationship that's personal as well as professionally. And I think it really starts there. And I had a couple of things that I felt were kind of essential to building trust. We live in this crazy world, as you know, so much is going on. We're not going to get into any sidebars because I think I might get us in trouble. But if you think, if you think
I know
about
where
it,
you're going.
I'm gonna keep this train on the tracks.
I got
But I
you.
think when you think about it, because of our environment, we have a tendency not to trust, and so really going in with those foundational things that builds trust, I think really will help us to sustain better relationships. Also, when you think about like we're business owners, and people really do business for the foundation of what they trust you. And if you get a
Mhm.
recommendation, that recommendation kind of comes with some trust because somebody you did what you said you were going to do with someone else, and that's kind of how it grows. So I tell everybody that's kind of probably the foundational thing for everything to be built on.
Mhm. And so when we think about, how we might compromise that at times, because, okay, we can focus on work for a quick minute here.
Okay.
We know that when it comes to, employees, direct reports, trusting the people who are leading them, there are so many things that leaders do that compromise that trust. They don't even realize it sometimes. They're so busy, just trying to get the work done and trying to meet the expectations of their bosses. If it's a middle manager, which is who I tend to deal with a lot of times too, that's such a wide array of people in any organization. So they're trying to satisfy the people above them. They're trying to satisfy the people below them. And sometimes what the people in the workforce want is not the same thing that the people at the top in senior leadership wants. So you get these middle managers that are being pulled in two different directions. And sometimes, and way too often though, they will do things that might seem disingenuous to one or the other of the groups, more than likely to the people reporting directly up to them, because they're trying to satisfy the folks who can fire them, right? The
Right.
the folks on the bottom can't necessarily fire them. And so they're trying to satisfy the needs of the organization based on how senior leadership wants it. But then you got to get your people underneath you to do the work, that they're expecting. And if they don't trust you, so Tina, has there been any situation that you can think of when you've been doing your training or you're coaching or working with individuals out in these workplaces where you've seen a manager or a leader do something that really caused some the folks under them not to really put a lot of faith in them anymore, to lose confidence in them? Any examples?
Oh, I have so many examples. I was really thinking about one this morning before we started, just a personal example that I had as a employee with a manager with my person that I reported directly to. And this was something, I think it was really like an integrity thing. This was, we all were going to lunch. It was not really a business lunch. We just said, hey, let's go to lunch. So we get there, everybody's ordering stuff. And at that time, this was in a corporate environment. We had our corporate cards, credit cards that we could use for business needs. And so our leader was like, oh, we're just going to make this into um, a work lunch. And she asked me to put the lunch for the team on my credit card because she said she didn't have hers. And she was like, oh, no worries. Because I approve it at my level and then it goes to the next level. And it just so happened, I didn't really feel comfortable with it because it was not really, and this is integrity for me. It was not, we were all just playing around. It was not anything work related. We didn't even talk shop or business. And for her to ask me to do it, I kind of felt like that was an integrity thing because if it was really legit, like you said it was, you would have put that
Mhm.
on your own card and
Right.
then let it move up to the head to the next step. And so I just happened not to have my card that day. And so I didn't do it. But because I felt like that was a compromise and more of an integrity thing, I lost trust because I thought
Mhm.
if I can't trust you in this small situation, what other things can I not trust you with? And so it really kind of damaged the relationship. And I realized that that was all based on really a trust or integrity issue, right? And
Mhm.
so as a result of that, I looked at her very differently than I did before. And so I'm sure I had probably a lot more questions about work or, different communications with her because of that lack of trust. And
Yeah.
also, I just think about in the consulting world that I'm in now, so many of the situations that, you know, I'm called in to deal with, it's really a lack of trust. So many times leaders will not be very transparent with their teams.
Hmm.
The communication is lacking, the follow through is lacking, all those things that causes distrust. I did want to mention one thing, and I even brought my book with me. I don't know if you can see this, but Five Dysfunctions of a Team is one of my
Oh,
favorite.
pull it up again. Oh, yeah, I'm very familiar with that's Pat Lencioni, huh? Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. And I've actually used his material a lot, but the very first thing, it's called Five Dysfunctions of a Team, which means if you don't have these elements, that's what causes dysfunction. And the very first thing is that lack of trust. And also, when you think about in a personal relationship, when you don't have trust, it's kind of like they always say, "What do you don't have anything anyway," right?
Right.
Because if you're
I
going to
mean,
always
what's left?
yeah, looking over your shoulder, always second guessing, that's a very difficult situation to be in. Um,
Hmm.
like even with our children, I have adult, I say adult kids, and then sometimes you're like, I'm not sure if you're really acting adult or not. But with my adult children, you always like I remember as they were growing up, when you did something against the rules, you violated my trust. And I just didn't
Right.
go back and say, "Oh, it's okay." No, you have to come back and earn that trust again
Hmm.
before I'm able to say yes to different things. And so I
Right.
think it's the same way in a personal environment as well as a business environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've kind of been in some of those same situations you have been in the corporate world because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in there, and people think, oh, this is a big corporation. They're not going to miss a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Absolutely.
But you got to realize that people are watching you and they're thinking, if you can't be trusted over these little things, how can you be trusted over greater things? Right. I think the Bible
Absolutely.
even says that. Yeah.
Yes.
So it makes you think twice about some folks and who's in your circle and who you
Right.
want to allow in there. So I heard you also mention follow up and follow through. And I think that's one of the things I hear most often too. When people are telling me, hey, I don't know if I can trust my manager to do this thing. They always make these promises. They're going to get behind this, going to check on it. They're going to get back with us, and we don't hear anything. That's why you hear this resounding, "Oh, they don't listen to us." And it's not that they're not listening to you. When people say that, their thought is they're not honoring what they say they're going to do. They're not responding to us actively like they claim
Right.
they would. So why would I trust you if you've made these promises and then we don't hear anything but crickets in the end?
Yes. You really, that follow through, I think that goes universal, personal or professional. You have to do what you say you're going to do.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, do you have those people in your life that you just really like? You can go to the bank on their word almost. You can
Yeah.
trust, right? And
Hmm.
if something happens, you almost give that person an out because you're almost thinking, oh my goodness, they are sick. They must be in the hospital, accident, something serious happened.
That's right.
And then you have those other people on the other side that don't follow through, and you're like, oh, I knew they were not going to do it anyway. I'm
Right.
surprised if it actually happens. And so I think it goes back. This is a kind of one of my, I guess, training examples. I teach, well, let's see, I think it's five. No, it's not the five dysfunctions of a team, but it's actually um, talking about your emotional bank account, basically. It's
Hmm.
just like a bank account. In order for you to get funds, you have to have deposits.
That's right.
And if you don't have deposits, you can make a withdrawal, but you might be in, we'll say, overdraft, or you
Hmm.
insufficient. So it's
Hmm.
it's the same thing when you are following up with your word. You have to be able to, every time you follow up and you do what you say you're going to do, you're making a almost like a literal deposit into
Yeah.
like that person's emotional bank account, because
Hmm.
that is how they trust you, because you're consistent. Now we're human. We're gonna make mistakes, and we give concession for for mishaps and things of that nature. But you got to ask yourself: is this a mishap because this has happened a few times, or is this uh, habitual because it happens all the
Mhm.
time? And
Yeah.
so, and something that I've learned over time, I had to learn how to pause before I make a commitment or answer, so that the commitments I make, I know that I can keep them instead of just always think, oh, I got to say yes, 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 and then you're overwhelming and you don't do a good job with any of it. So,
Mhm.
one tagline I use is "No is a complete sentence." Sometimes you have to say no to things, um, and you have to protect that, your commitments or your follow through on things, so that you don't put yourself in a hole. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm taking notes over here because you're saying so many things I wanna hit on it because
Okay.
I'm with you 100% on that.
Okay.
That bank account you were talking about, I found in years that people have an expectation from other folks in relationship with them that they're supposed to give them something. They're looking for a return on their investment, right? So if
Yeah.
I put something into you, into this relationship, I expect to get something back from it. And when they don't get whatever it is they're looking for, when the expectations are not met, then that
Hmm.
trust it starts to erode. But here's
Yeah.
the thing, there are people who are trying to get things out of relationships when they put nothing into it. And so you can't withdraw from something you haven't invested in. Okay.
Betty, you hitting something good. That's almost another podcast, I think.
Absolutely. Oh, I see it all the time and it
Yes.
drives me bonkers. I'm like, what are you bringing to this
Yes.
relationship, right? You got all
Absolutely.
these high expectations. The other thing, Tina, that I have found quite often in work environments is when I go in and do some training and I am asking some of the simplest, most non-lethal questions. I'll call them that, right?
Right.
Something I just think because I want to engage the audience, right? I want them to talk back to me, but I am met with silence. I mean, just, rock solid silence. And I'm trying to figure out, well, why aren't people talking back? Well, that was when, the earlier part of my, getting into this business and doing training. I now understand what that silence means. And it means I am in an environment where trust is lacking severely. And the reason why I know that is because in the past, when I have had the opportunity to speak to these people and nobody's talking to me, talking back to me in class, and I mean, really simple, benign questions that anybody should be able to answer. Folks are refusing to answer it. And then when I ask them, why is it so quiet in the class? I get, these looks around the room. Nobody wants to cop to it. But when we get break time, oh, they're all running up to me. I know what you're trying to do. I appreciate you trying to get, but let me tell you, we don't trust each other in here. You can
Yeah.
try all you want. You're not going to get anybody to say anything because folks are worried about who's going to go back and tell what so and so said and all of this kind of thing. Has that been your experience when you have been able to recognize a low trust environment? What have you seen?
Absolutely. That's a new term now, and maybe it's not so new, but it's having that psychological safety environment. When you're psychologically safe, it is an environment where it is okay to share your thoughts. It's okay to come in being your whole self. Most of the times in those environments where you're talking about, people feel like, okay, I'm going to say what I think they want me to say. Even sometimes, we talked about the DISC assessment. I've had several people to take it and then come back and say, "Oh, I don't know if I agree," but they were trying to, answer like, "Okay, I'm in this role. I suppose to maybe be this particular style," and they're trying to, you know, answer the way they think they're supposed to answer
Hmm.
because people don't feel safe enough to really be able to be open and honest. And I think as we go back to this trust issue, people will feel the psychological safety when you are in environments where you can come in and be your whole self, when you can come in and you know that, people want to know that you can be transparent. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I made a mistake here. Let me go back and let's figure out I missed this component of something.
Hmm.
And that's not going to discredit you, but it builds your credit because
That's
I'm able to see, oh, Betty, you're human. Okay, no problem. But if you come and try to protect it like you didn't make the mistake. It's kind of like the old, this is an old, I guess, example of it's like the emperor with no clothes. Everybody
Yes.
knows when you have on any clothes, but he's walking around like, hey, I got a full suit.
Mm-hmm.
And so people know when you're not open and honest and transparent. So I think those are the things that even in our personal relationships, we have to come in and be our whole self. I just had an incident with a great friend. We've been friends forever. And sometimes, you are a little reluctant to kind of say how you feel. But,
Mm-hmm.
I guess now, as these birthdays keep coming,
Well,
you're learning to say, hey, I'm going to say what's on my mind. And so I
mm-hmm.
think most of the times when we are in environments personally as well as professionally, we are a little reluctant to kind of, and I'm not saying don't come in and be disrespectful and not consider people's feelings, but you have to be very open and honest about how you are feeling about a certain thing. Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that really helps to build the trust is when you're able to be transparent, when we're able to create environments where people do feel safe, being
Mm-hmm.
able to actually be themselves. And also sometimes we find that, conflict, we feel like that's a bad word. And conflict is not bad if
No.
you can resolve it in a respectful way.
Yes.
It's okay. We're not going to always agree, right? We're going to have different
Absolutely.
perspectives. So
Mm-hmm.
it's okay for you to have your perspective, I have mine, but we come together and talk about it.
That's the problem, though, Tina. Too often, I think people are trying to lord their own perspectives upon other people. So if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to trash you for not believing in me or agreeing with me, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to judge people's opinions. We don't want to accept that they're just differing viewpoints. We can both have a good point in whatever this discussion is about and have some truth to it and have a valid, rationale behind it. But too often I find that one side wants to be right, which means they have to make the other side wrong. And
Wrong.
it doesn't have to be a win-lose situation like that. Don't set things up where we're adversarial and we have to have this a disagreement in such a way that it becomes a confrontation and argumentative. Just respect the other side's opinion and let them have that. But we're losing that today in
We're
society.
losing that. And it's not a right wrong, but it can be a win-win because if I take a little bit of what you said and let me look at it from your perspective, you take a little bit of what if I said, and you like, okay, I kind of get that. Then that's when
Yes.
we can match those two ideas, and that's when we can come up with something brilliant. I mean, or
Mhm.
really have that common respect for each other. Because think about it. Do you want just somebody to say yes to, or be the yes person to everything?
Right.
Are we going?
Right.
I mean, we don't want to have relationships with just ourselves. We need that blended, that different perspective approach to really make it. I mean, to make it rich and good, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think about that. I'm a foodie and I love to cook, and when you think about cooking, and I'm a big person. Seasoning,
Okay. Yes,
I use
ma'am.
lots of spices, and so,
Yes.
but a lot of times I'm learning that some spices may not go well with some, but when you blend up all of those different things, that's when you have the richest flavors. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I
Mhm.
try to think about that. It's not just one bland taste, but it's like a lot of times when you think about how do you blend several different
Mhm.
thoughts and perspectives and ideas and bring those together.
I use that as an example when I'm doing DEI training, and I know DEI has gotten a bad rap these days because
I
people
know.
just don't understand it. That's why they get a bad rap. But I try to get them to understand diversity in that way because I'm from deep South Louisiana and gumbo is our jam down there. I tell them, listen, you can have a good pot of gumbo without having all of these different things in it. And I share with them all the ingredients. And so those together, those ingredients, like you said, blended together gives that dish its distinct flavoring. And when any of that is missing, you can tell if you got a palate for that, you can tell the parts that are missing. So it's needed. We're all needed, and it's
Yes.
okay to accept our differences and recognize those differences, accept those differences and recognize them, and then say they're good. Not to say, I don't want this
Absolutely.
shrimp in here because I don't know, my crab meat is better than my shrimp, or sausage is the name of the game, get rid of that chicken or whatever the deal is. No, all of
Right,
that together
right.
makes it
Yes.
happen. Now I'm hungry. Okay.
Uh-oh, see, I did it. I did it.
It's all good. So, in this whole idea around trust, one of the things we were alluding to a little bit earlier was the listening part, because I heard you mention
Yeah,
something around being transparent and, staying open. And so, in order to do that, you got to be wide open in order to receive what people are saying. And so, how good of a job do you think we do when it comes to really fully listening? And I'm talking active listening to what
yeah.
other people are saying and embracing that. How do you think we're doing in terms of our listening skills?
I think listening, to be honest, I probably would rate most of us pretty low because when you think about it, we are taught to communicate. You think about in school, you have a speech class, communication, you have Toastmasters, you have everything that teaches you how to present yourself and talk. If you were going to do a presentation or you were going to do some kind of situation, you're always thinking about your words. Also, in a work environment,
Right.
I think about as leaders do maybe one on ones or evaluations, they think that they have to do all the talking. But
Mm-hmm.
listening is really the probably most biggest component to communicating. Because if you
Absolutely.
are an active listener, really listening to the body language, listening to the words, then you're able to respond with the communication part a little better. But most
Mm-hmm.
of us, and I'm gonna talk about myself because I've really have worked on this. I'm usually listening just enough because while you're talking, I'm formulating my opinion because I want to have a good comeback line. I want to be able to say, "Hey, I got something out provoking." But a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times, because I'm rehearsing what I'm going to say, I'm probably missing out on a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Also, I know you've done some work on emotional intelligence, and people always kind of now talk about being able to read the room.
Mm-hmm.
Reading the room is really listening because it's watching with, the body language, the actions. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times you can tell when people are checked out or when they are, maybe don't agree. That's all part of the listening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I think listening is a big component. Some of the things that I try to give some tips on how to be a better listener is taking the time to set the stage for listening, try to
Mm-hmm.
move out distractions. A lot of time, if I'm in an interaction, we have these cell phones around us real
Oh,
close, right?
mine is right there,
But I try
beeping
to,
right now.
yeah, I try to turn that cell phone, upside down where it's not
Mm-hmm.
distracting me. I try to be in an environment where I've kind of cleared my desk off. Or if you're in a personal setting, being able to be in an environment where you're not going to get a lot of distractions if you know you need to talk about something personal. So that I also trying to take a breath and pause. Let the person finish. But most of the times, what do? We interrupt, or and I'm bad at it sometimes. And I'm constantly working on it. So I'm learning to just stop,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to nod or give good eye contact so that the person know that I'm listening. And I try
Mm-hmm.
to listen. I'm trying to do a better job of listening all the way through before I make my comment, before I start formulating my mindset on, oh, okay, I got my opinion. This is it. And so, really being open and embracing and being a better active listener.
Mm-hmm.
Also, listening is kind of doing those check ins of saying, did I hear you to say so and so? Is this what you were
Mm-hmm.
meaning? I just want to make sure I have the right understanding. And that causes, I mean, just by doing those simple things, will relieve a lot of tension and miswork or misunderstanding. Because even in your personal relationships, most of the time it's just a misunderstanding. You heard
Yeah.
something that the person didn't even mean, didn't I said it one way and you took it another.
Mm-hmm.
But if we really listen, we'd be
Yes.
like, oh, is that what you meant? Okay, I got a whole nother thing.
It's that self-talk that we do while we're listening. So to your point, we have to think about what's happening in the moment. We can't be too many steps ahead. Now, I'm gonna, as an aside, speak up for us trainers and facilitators and coaches, because you're right. We do have to be armed with the next question, because you're trying to engage your audience. If you're not a talking head at the front of the room, which I try not to be, I try to make sure that I'm keeping the floor open for discussion, because you learn as much as you give if you let other people share. So while we're listening to them, though, we're trying to stay in tune with what they're saying. But by the same token, we have an agenda we're trying to follow. We want to make sure we stay on target with that. You might have a whole PowerPoint presentation thing up in the background because you want to stay focused, and carry the people through what you intend to teach them. And so
Yeah.
you're listening to them and you're trying to prepare yourself with the next question to ask to involve other people. So there's a lot going on in your mind at that time, which competes with your active listening skills in the moment, but it requires focus. So I'm with you on that. I try to be in the moment and listen to what a person is saying throughout. As a coach, listening becomes a big part of what you do, because in my
Mhm.
coaching sessions, it's not about me, it's about the person sitting in there. And
Absolutely.
sometimes all they want you to do is listen. They're not
This,
looking for you to fix anything or to offer any input. They just want somebody to be a sounding board. So
yes.
I've learned to do that over the years. I sometimes listen too much, though. I'll say that at times. I'm with you. I'm an interrupter as well. But there are times when I need to cut people off and I just let them go, 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 go. And everybody else in the class is like, when you going to shut this down? It's like, she's been talking for 30 minutes. Can we get, in this thing? Yeah. So I'm with you. We just have to do a much better job in terms of being present and giving
Yes.
people the full
Yes.
attention so we can
Yes.
engage in that
Yes.
conversation with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to piggyback on several things you said. You're absolutely right. I do think we have to have, some techniques of how you should, when you say you got it, sometimes somebody's over talking and they're taken away from the rest of the group. So I do think you have to have techniques on that. Sometimes you can say, hey, you know what, let's take this offline. Or you know what, maybe take a quick break and say, talk to that person. Hey, you got some really good, interesting comments, but I want to make sure that everyone has opportunity. I don't, it's so many different ways, but I do think that uh, sometimes when we are good listeners, sometimes it may take us down a different road because that person could be saying, hey, I'm ready to talk about something else and you're still on this. So
Hmm.
sometimes being able to shift and pivot is important because listening still is such a key component of that communication skill.
Absolutely. And like you said, building trust. So if I
Yes.
hear you, I'm listening to your words, I'm watching your behavior, and
Mhm.
the way you're showing me yourself and what I'm hearing from you, it's conditioning me to think a certain way about you. Can I
Yeah.
trust what I see and can I trust what I hear? Because is it all just a facade, or is this really you? Is this the authentic you? And if it is, okay, now I'm coming to learn who you are, and this is what I can trust to see in you on a regular basis. But if you putting up this front and I see you one way one day and you somebody totally different the next, I don't
Yes.
have a lot of confidence in who I'm seeing. So my trust level is going to remain low with you.
Yes, correct. I think people know real and we can fake for a little bit, but that usually will wear out. You
Hmm.
can't keep up those facades for too long because people gonna see the real person. I think that's where when we go back to that transparency, being really real and honest about it. Because of
Hmm.
course we always want to show up at our best and you know try to do these things in certain ways, but you still always need to be able to be your true self.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think good friends will let you do that. You mentioned earlier about, just being able to know how to. I heard the word, you didn't use the word, I don't think, but I heard you say it in this sense that it's about giving each other permission to give each other feedback. So, if I can trust what you think of me because you're going to be honest. Yeah, you were saying how the older we get, the more direct we are, the more we don't want to beat around the bush. We just want to speak what's on our minds. And this is so true. I think that comes with maturity. But when you've had these friendships for a long period of time, you've built that over time to be able to be as frank and as honest, and nobody takes it personally. We're just pulling coattails, right? And trying to keep us at our best. And
Ab-
so for people who are younger, even Tina, what would you recommend to them in this friendship, building trust in friendships, as we move away from the work conversation in our personal lives? How do we build better friendships through building better trust?
Oh, that is so good. I think that still requires, it's still over time, but I would also say that consistency,
Mm.
it's a way to be able to give that feedback, kind of pulling coattails, as you said. I love the way
Mhm.
you worded that. But also, I think it's, you have to remember, especially as when you kind of say younger, doing it in a respectful way. I think that's where it goes. I don't get to just, even in different environments, you have people in your family just think they can say or do whatever they want, and it's okay. And that's not okay. You still
Mhm.
need to be able to respect the person, and how and what that should look like. How do you want to be spoken to? It's the same way you should speak to others. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that would be the thing that I probably would point out, is that respectful interactions, and also consistency. Because if I'm this way today and another way tomorrow, as a friend or in a personal relationship, I'm not going to know which one to trust, right? Do I trust the good one? Do I trust the bad? So I need to be able to know that you do have good intent, you have my best interest in
Mhm.
mind, that this is not trying to be hurtful. You don't get to, just because I'm a certain way, just say, Betty, you're more direct and maybe I'm not. You don't get to railroad me, kind of like they say gaslight now, that's another
Mhm.
term. Just because that's how you are, you still have to respect that other person's thoughts and perspectives and ideas. Goes back to what we said earlier. Um, we need all the different seasonings, we need all the different perspectives, but it's just a matter of how do you do that in a, I just keep saying, that respectful way.
Absolutely. I'm gonna jump on that
Okay.
100% in terms of the respect. You know why? Because we tend to disrespect the people we know the best. So we don't think we have to treat them as well, right? I know you, I can handle you any kind of way. No. In fact,
No,
the
no.
love that should exist between us should encourage more respect, and the boundaries that we set for ourselves and for each other. And so that we don't cross over that and cause issues, and be respectful of what people have put out front about how to interact with me and what will work for us. And that's what builds those great and strong and long lasting relationships. So that's why I was referring to the younger people who are still in this. You and I have been in this game for a little bit,
Yeah.
and we know, and we've built relationships over time. I have friends that I've been friends with since kindergarten. And so we
Oh,
know
wow.
each other,
Yeah.
yeah, 55 years we've been around, hanging out. And over time, even as our lives have transformed and done different things, we still know where the boundaries are, and we respect those boundaries, and that's why I think the relationships last. So people just have to, when it comes to building trust,
Yeah.
be consistent, like you say, and always show up the same way every time, so we know what we're getting. We can have confidence in what we see.
Well, Betty, I'm gonna be myself. I want to, everything you just said. I have a one word. Amen.
Amen.
You hit that. I mean, that is exactly right. And I think it's the boundaries. Those long lasting relationships that you just mentioned since kindergarten, that's
Mhm.
lifelong friendships. But I think in order to have those types of friendships, you have to have operated in some boundaries, some levels of
Yes.
respect of each other. And when a boundary is crossed, you have to be able to say, hey, and then that person respect that boundary.
That's right.
And I think one thing about building trust, we have to be able to be ourselves, but sometimes we have to adjust. We have to monitor and adjust. I mean, because I don't get to just cross your boundaries and just say, oh, that's just me, that's how I operate, I got to keep it
Mhm.
real. No, I'm not saying not to, you know be true, but you still have to say, you know what, this is a relationship that I respect. I care about this person. I want to keep this relationship, and I may have to adjust. I don't get to just do what I want to do. And I
Right.
think that's what trust is all about. I had some notes here, and I don't think I followed any of the notes. We just had good conversation. But a couple of things that I think I was trying to go back and look, but I really had on here about, um, transparency, follow through, healthy conflict, um, really having, the boundaries in place. I
Mhm.
think is really what helps with the trust in relationships, and then the consistency.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you said, when the boundaries, if something happens or feedback is needed, we should be able to talk about those things. And like you said, nobody's upset, nobody's it's just that we can respectfully do this. I can respect your thoughts, and you can respect mine, and we can, like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm fine with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we set boundaries for a reason and they're not to be crossed. I think where we
Exactly.
run into issues is those boundaries are sometimes not a solid line, they're a dotted line and they move. And so we change these things up, and folks are like, well, I thought you just told me I wasn't supposed to do this thing. I didn't know it applied to that thing too. And we're not very clear all the time. And that's why we say trust is built over time. You'll run most times we don't even know we've crossed over into somebody else's territory until we do it, right? And then they have to tell us,
Yeah.
and then that's when we know, oh, I've crossed the line. Let me back up. But then respect that line later on. If that
Yeah.
line has been drawn and you know that wasn't where they wanted you to go, then from that point forward, I'm gonna go back to your then respect that. You were talking about being
Yes.
respectful. So
Yes.
respect the lines that have been drawn, honor that, and then
Absolutely.
we'll get along fine. We'll just get along fine.
That's
And
right.
so this is listen, our time is already coming to an end, and I feel like
Oh
we're
my
just getting
goodness.
started. But I really appreciate your insight. So as we wrap this up, I do want to give
Okay.
you, a minute or two just to, if there's anything we haven't discussed around this whole idea around trust and building relationships, is there anything more that you want to add before we kind of shut everything down?
Wow, thank you. This time has gone by so fast. I really appreciate the opportunity. I think the last thing is being able to, I think we said several key words that I just want as reminders. The boundaries, respect. Also, we talked a little bit about the listening, but building your capacity to be a better active listener, I think is going to go a long ways with building the trust. And like I
Mhm.
said, even with the listening, really having some tools in your toolbox of, how to handle certain situations, how to still keep the interactions respectful, not railroading, anybody, cutting them off too much, things of that nature, but really setting that environment for active listening. Um, I think is really will be beneficial of building trust. And trust is built over time. It is built with that consistency. I think the last thing I would say is try to make deposits and not too many withdrawals as it comes to your important relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have been a jewel. Thank you so much, Tina
Thank
Gilbert
you.
of Next Level Training Solutions Group in Fayetteville, Arkansas, all those wonderful things, for being with me today and just kind of parsing out some of these things that we may oftentimes take for granted, but we need to hear it. We need to be reminded that this is important in terms of, tamping down some of these people issues. We have a lot more control than we think we do and that we give ourselves. And so I just hope these are great reminders for our viewers. We appreciate all of y'all for being here with us today. And we hope you'll come back next week for episode 12 and have another exciting guest. And we'll talk about another people issue. Thank you.
Thank you.